I support Lincoln City, who play in League One. Their start to the new season, as well as all the new signings, has got me very excited. After commentating for the club for 3 seasons, the board have decided the next logical step was to make me manager and give me one challenge. Win Lincoln City the Champions League. Doesn't sound too difficult to me. In Season 1 though, the board just wants us to make the League One playoffs. So that's exactly what I told the players, but a majority of them didn't like it. So I'm hoping Captain Paulie O'Connor can help change their minds. I'm also using an updated database to make sure we have all the latest transfers. And I'm trying to play in a similar way to how Lincoln play in real life. 5 at the back, with a dynamic midfield behind 2 strikers. However, at Lincoln, we currently have 6 strikers. So we need to work out who the best 2 are. On the opening day, we start with Ben Howes and on loan Bailey Cadamarteri up top. But neither of them looked like scoring. Instead, it was Tom Bayliss who hit the woodwork not once, but twice in the first half from distance. We're dominating the game, but we just can't break the deadlock. So around 55 minutes in, I subbed on Freddie Draper, but even he wasn't getting any chances. Instead, wingback Eric Ring played the ball into JJ McKiernan, who found space to shoot and scored. Then our second goal came from an even more unlikely source, as Captain Paulie O'Connor got on the end of Eric Ring's corner. So it's a great opening day win, but our strikers were poor. As the season progressed though, it became clear that Freddie Draper and Ben Howes knew where the back of the net was. Ben Howes was even making a claim to be the league's top scorer as he continues to perform as we kept winning games in the early part of the season. In fact, our only loss was thanks to a 92nd minute winner for Bolton, which means around a third of the way into the season, we sit on top of the pile. But there are teams who have as many as 3 games in hand on us. From here on out though, it was the Freddie Draper show. He helped us get revenge over Bolton Wanderers and started to build a real lead at the top of the table. With 15 games to go, we sit 6 points clear of Bolton, and from our position right now, if we don't earn promotion, it's a total failure. But that pressure got to the players, as we started to throw away our lead at the top of the table. We lost 5 of our next 10 games against Peterborough United, Blackpool, Reading, Wigan and Burton Albion, even when we absolutely dominated those matches. With 5 games to go, we dropped down to 3rd in the table, and we have some tough matches coming up. Thankfully, we beat Wycombe Wanderers 3-1 at home to build some confidence. Freddie Draper's early goal against playoff-chasing Stockport County was followed up by Bailey Cadamarteri's late goal for another 3 points. However, Huddersfield Town got the better of us, which means after we beat Shrewsbury Town 2-0 at home on the penultimate day of the season, we moved back into 2nd place, 2 points ahead of Birmingham City, who of course we play away from home on the final day of the season. Early on, Birmingham's £20 million signing, Jay Stansfield, found Kalu out wide, who was totally unmarked, and he was able to give the Blues the lead, pushing us down into 3rd place. Less than 60 seconds later though, we got on the front foot, but Ethan Erahan's effort was only denied by the post. So at the break, we may be ahead in the match stats, but we're behind on the score sheet. Early in the second half, Tendai Darikwa put in a wonderful cross for Eric Ring, but somehow the keeper pushed the ball onto the crossbar and denied us an equaliser. But finally, we had a breakthrough. Ring got the better of Kalu on the near side and put a ball into the middle for JJ McKiernan to rifle home, putting us back into 2nd place in the table. Moments later though, Lewis Montsma looked like he put in a perfectly timed tackle, but the referee thought otherwise and gave Birmingham City a penalty, which Kalu went on to score. So I made changes, bringing on Cadamarteri, who was given a chance straight away, but he just couldn't finish. However, from the resulting throw-in, we got the ball into the mixer, and Ben Howes appeared in the right place at the right time to get us back on level terms, earning us the point we need to earn promotion to the Championship by the skin of our teeth. Draper, House and Cadamarteri will get the plaudits for the goals, but Eric Ring's 27 assists cannot be forgotten. He's my player of the season. The Championship is going to be so much harder though. And something else which is going to be really difficult is me giving up the editing of videos. It's come to a point now where I need a video editor to make things better and take things to the next level. But I'm a little bit of a control freak over my content, basically, as I suppose, you know, everyone is who makes content. So, if you can deal with that, and you also think you are a very good editor, or you know someone who's a very good editor who can basically replicate what I do editing-wise, but also build on that and make these videos bigger and better, etc, etc, then I'd love to hear from you. There's a Google form down in the description. Please fill it out, and I'll get back to you ASAP. The board have given us £5 million to spend, but we're competing with teams getting £41 million in Premier League parachute payments. And because it's the Championship now, players want big wages. So quite frankly, we were priced out of moves for the likes of Samulia Koulibaly and Kane Kessler-Hayden, who wanted upwards of £20,000 a week. Thankfully, we are able to scout the entire world. So I sent my scouts far and wide to look for budget picks. And we were able to make some decent signings. But to be honest with you, the only one I've ever heard of before is Ellery Balkoum, who comes in to be a backup goalkeeper for us. I do have high hopes for 3 young players that we've recruited though. Travis Akamia has pace to burn and potential to be lethal from set pieces if we can improve his aerial ability. Abdoulaye Djiri looks like he can thread some passes through for our strikers and will get a bunch of assists this season. Hopefully those passes go to the feet of Nikša Delabasic, who will start up top alongside Freddie Draper this season. All 3 are just 20 years old, so a full season playing in the Championship should do their development the world of good. 6 of our 7 new signings slot into the first team, as we're going to run it back with the exact same formation as last season. On the opening day, Delabasic gave us the lead just before half-time, but Louis Barry pulled one back for Plymouth in the second half to draw the match. We thought we'd won our second game of the season though, when Ethan Errahun scored 80 minutes in. But Draper apparently pushed over Watford's man in the penalty area, allowing Tom Ince to draw the game. But finally, in our 3rd match of the season, we won. Nikša Delabasic scored himself a hat-trick in a 5-2 victory against West Bromwich Albion. Now, we did take some hammerings, like a 5-1 defeat to Sheffield Wednesday and a 4-1 defeat to Burnley away from home, but more often than not, we were winning games. Especially because no one was able to find a way to stop this kid from Serbia scoring goals. After just 15 games, he scored 15 goals and is the league's top scorer, taking us up to 8th in the table and in the hunt for the playoffs a third of the way through the season. However, those aspirations might not last long, as we struggled for form heading into December and Delabasic started to slow down. When we did win games, it was from unlikely sources, such as new midfielder Jack Taylor and left-sided centre-back Sean Rowan. As a result, we dropped down slightly to 10th place. But if we can maintain a top half finish in our first season in the Championship, it would be a miracle. But the players were trying to do more than that. Tom Bayliss scored an 88th minute winner against Birmingham, whilst Jack Taylor scored a 91st minute winner against Middlesbrough. And Freddie Draper decided he was going to turn into prime Ronaldo for the final month of the season, scoring an incredible 9 goals in 7 games to end the season. However, it wasn't quite enough for a playoff spot, as we finished 5 points behind Middlesbrough. But 7th feels like a miracle. No way would we have got anywhere near that without Delabasic and Draper scoring plenty of goals. Outside of those 2 players, we actually struggle to get goals in the team, so it's imperative we keep hold of one of them this summer, because we might need to sell one of them due to some budgeting issues. We've got the same wage budget and a smaller transfer budget than last season, making it almost impossible to build on our achievements. So when Sheffield Wednesday offered us a package of up to £15 million for Draper, we had to listen. but I would kick myself if I didn't try and negotiate this price upwards. So I asked for £10 million up front and 7.5 million down the line, all guaranteed, which they accepted. Obviously, I then started to plan out how I want to spend this money. There was just one issue. Freddie Draper rejected the contract offer from Sheffield Wednesday. It turns out he was furious we'd even accepted a bid from them in the first place, and he felt forced out of the club. So I told him the truth. The club need to cash in on him. And he said he's worth more to the club if he stays. Which, to be honest, is kind of true. If he scores 20 goals next season and takes us to the Premier League, we'll get more money for doing that than selling him to Sheffield Wednesday. Fortunately, we were able to sell goalkeeper George Wickens for £15 million and left-back Gallo for a package worth up to £16.5 million. Despite our newfound riches though, we still had a few issues. Players chose our league rivals instead of us because our reputation just isn't as good as theirs, or they were asking for way too much money and I wasn't willing to compromise. But in the end, we managed to bring in 8 new faces, including Javier Bellman and Alfie Doherty, to replace Wickens and Gallo. 5 of these new players make their way into the starting 11. And once again, we run the back 5. This season, both of our strikers were slow to start, meaning the likes of former wonder kid Vasco Sousa and Abdullah Djiri had to pick up the slack early on in games. But it wasn't long before Freddie Draper started to score, and was proving his worth to the club. He's not quite the league's top scorer yet, but he's helped us up to the top spot in the table, 6 points ahead of Bolton, who were also promoted from League One alongside us. At this point, I am at a loss for words. How are Lincoln City top of the Championship table? Well, it turns out we are better than I thought we are, because the pre-season preview has us in 10th place. So yes, we are outperforming ourselves, but not by as much as you would think. Draper wants us to stay on top of the table, so he continued to bag goals for us as we picked up important wins. Delabasic was also chipping in with a few, but he wasn't as prolific as he was last season. Not that it matters though. 2/3 of the way through the season, and Draper's already scored more goals than he did last season, as we sit 9 points clear at the top of the Championship table, with Bolton still in 2nd place. If you can't beat Bolton, like we couldn't in Season 1, you become Bolton. Bolton's very own Big Sam taught me everything I know about how to be a football manager, including how to bottle things. In February and March, we began to slip up. We conceded a 93rd minute goal to lose away at Wolves, Coventry thrashed us 3-0, and Luton got the better of us as they beat us 3-1. Now, it may only be 3 losses, but during the same time period, Bolton were perfect, which means they reduced the 9-point gap to 0, and we only stay ahead on goal difference. So our next match away from home against Bolton is huge. Draper had an early chance from a corner, but headed over the bar. Delabasic also had a chance to score, but his shot was incredibly weak. Finally though, 34 minutes in, Draper rose highest from a corner and nodded us in front. But seconds before half-time, Bolton were clean through on the counter-attack, one-on-one with Bellman, who pulled off an incredible save to keep us in front at the break, only for Bolton to score anyway early in the second half from a neat corner routine. However, less than 2 minutes later, right wing-back Janko put in a looping cross to the far post, where Delabasic volleyed the ball into the ground and over Gabriel Slaninia to give us back the lead. And to put the match beyond all doubt, Freddie Draper scored again to make it 3-1 and win us the game. We then emerged victorious at home against Huddersfield as we won 4-0, but when we travelled to already relegated Birmingham City, we fell to a 2-1 defeat. At the same time, Bolton won, meaning we're back on level terms with 3 games to go. But as we beat Rotherham 2-0 away from home, Luton Town did us a favour by beating Bolton 1-0. Then both us and Bolton won on the penultimate day of the season, which means we go into the final day 3 points clear, where the only way we can lose the title is if there's a 25-goal swing in Bolton's favour. As it turns out, we ended up losing 2-0 away at Leicester City. But it's okay, because Bolton didn't win by 23 goals. So at full time, we were officially announced as Championship winners and confirm our spot in the Premier League next season. Also, I owe an apology to Freddie Draper. This would not have been possible without his 36 league goals. He was right. He is worth more to the club than £17 million from Sheffield Wednesday. From now on, I will never question anything that man says, and you shouldn't either. Listen to Freddie. He says subscribe to the channel. We already know that he is right. Now, we need to make big improvements to this squad, but we only have £28 million to do it with. So I think our best use of the money is to buy wonder kids. So we move quickly to sign Gabriel Slaninia from Chelsea for just £650,000 after he impressed on loan at Bolton last season. Then we signed 20-year-old Chris Rigg for £16.25 million from Sunderland to be our heartbeat in midfield. We also added some major quality with 4 extra additions, but we did struggle this summer because of insane wage demands, including half of our current squad who all wanted dramatic wage rises that I just couldn't pay for. If we avoid relegation, everyone can have a wage rise, but until then, we have to be careful. On the opening day, we went 1-0 down to Arsenal within 5 minutes, and I thought we were going to be demolished. However, summer signings Carney Chukwuemeka and Julian Carranza combined off the bench to score late on and earn us a huge point. But I think that gave us a false sense of security, because the very next game, Bournemouth beat us 3-1 thanks to some very sloppy passing. We also lost to Fulham as they beat us 1-0 with a moment of magic. However, an inspired display at home against Brentford earned us our first 3 points of the Premier League season, with of course Freddie Draper getting himself on the score sheet after he signed a new contract over summer. Again though, this lulled us into a false sense of security, and we ended up losing the next 5 games in a row before finally recovering against Ipswich. But after a baptism of fire in the Premier League, we started to adapt, earning some important draws away at Newcastle and at home against Tottenham Hotspur. Around 1/3 of the way into the season, we sit 14th on 13 points. If we can average a point per game this season, I think we should survive the drop. Now, over the next few months, we did suffer some obvious defeats to the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, and notably Bournemouth for the second time this season. But the team was meeting the demands of the Premier League more and more, as we beat Brighton 3-1 away from home, Crystal Palace 1-0 also away from home, and then absolutely thumped Fulham 7-0 at Sincilbank, scoring all 7 of our goals in the first half of the match. This means that 2/3 of the way into the season, we've climbed up to 11th in the table with 34 points, just 4 points away from my initial target for the season. From here on out though, our form was just quite frankly bizarre. We suffered a 3-1 defeat away at Spurs, but then the very next game we beat Nottingham Forest at home. And then the very next game we lost away from home at Chelsea, where Raheem Sterling is actually thriving. And then the very next game after that, we beat Brighton. And on this cycle went until the end of the season. Win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1. So we end the season slap bang in the middle of the table in 10th place, having lost 1 more game than we'd won. But we've performed way above expectations, so quite frankly, I am absolutely delighted. If I'm honest with you, I was not expecting this tactic to be so good. I just wanted to play one season in a similar way to how Lincoln do in real life. But it turns out it might be one of the best underdog tactics I've ever used in FM24. However, we are going to have to switch things up at some point in the next few seasons if we want to go to the next level. Thanks to a season of Premier League money, the club coffers are full, and we've been given £47 million to spend. But despite all of that money, we need to be sensible. And this involves saying goodbye. Ethan Errahun has been ever present in our team, but he's only a leading championship player. So when he asks me for £41,000 a week in wages, I just can't justify it, which means we're gonna let him go at the end of his contract. In actual fact, we still have 6 of Lincoln's original squad here, and whilst they're all comfortable championship players, If we want to progress, it's time to start phasing them out. Oh, this is so sad. I wish they all had 200 potential ability and I could just keep them forever. Sean Rowan was sold to Bristol City, who offered us £22.5 million for him. Ben House left for Carlisle for a slightly smaller fee of £300,000. Slightly smaller still, Bayliss left for £200,000. And finally, Monster made his departure for just £60,000. But it gives us a ton more money to play with, and we brought in 10 new players. Lello and Asei Samuel are experienced players who join us to play at wingback. Lavia, Ritchie, Fitzgerald and Sealt are all real-life wonder kids, but as you can tell by their price, they haven't developed as well as they could have done in this save. And we're now also venturing into the realm of regens. 18-year-old American Matthew Vitale is good enough to start for us at centre-back this season, whereas Thiago Soares might need a few loans to develop before he's ready. The big question though is who's going to start up top for us? Because Draper and Dela Basic have been instrumental in getting us to where we are right now. But Dom Djuric is a top finisher, has bags of pace, and already got 2 caps for Croatia at just 19 years old. And we managed to beat Bayern Munich to sign Derby County's Luke Gillam, who could be a perfect little man to complement the big man Freddie Draper. So I'm starting 6 new players for our first game of the season, but we could easily start 9 of our 10 new additions. That's how good this summer has been. Luke Gillam and Niksha Dela Basic set the early pace as our starting strikers, as they both scored 3 goals in the first 4 games. Freddie Draper scored a brace past Aston Villa to throw his hat into the ring for a starting spot. It actually took until November for new boy Dom Djuric to score his first few goals for the club, including an all-important winner against Brighton. But a third of the way through the season, we sit 13th in the table, with Dela Basic as our top scorer, but he's only managed to get 5 goals so far. Dela Basic and Gillam became my go-to strikers, which worked out pretty well to start off with. But Gillam hit a cold streak, so I swapped him out with Dom Djuric, who went on a tear as defenders just couldn't deal with his explosive acceleration and pace. With 10 games to go, his goals had helped us up to 8th place in the table, and we're level on points with West Ham in the European spots. But we can guarantee European football next season if we win our next match. We'd narrowly won all of our games in the League Cup, and we're now up against Crystal Palace in the final. The prize? A spot in the UEFA Europa Conference League. Our first chance of the game came from a corner that Palace cleared. Samuel Ritchie found Lloyd Kelly in acres of space as he sprinted into the area, took a shot, and opened up the scoring for the Imps. Alfie Doherty then played a low cross into the middle, but Doucouré fouled Djuric, giving us a penalty. But somehow, the team thought that left wing-back Lello was the man to take it, and he had his effort saved, meaning we only lead by 1 at the break. 67 minutes in, and Lello was trying to redeem himself. He played the ball through to Rigg, who squeezed a pass into the middle of the penalty area, but the keeper made an incredible save. And then the keeper did something more amazing, if you're a Crystal Palace fan, that is. In the 87th minute, he goes forward for a free kick and scored, taking the game to extra time. I actually can't believe what I've just watched. He has saved a penalty and scored a goal. Luckily for us though, Palace couldn't hack another 30 minutes. Substitutes combined as Djuric put in a low cross to Freddie Draper, and he got us back in front. Then some wonderful passing from our front men gave Freddie the opportunity to shoot, and he scored to double our lead. But the boy wasn't done there. We raced forward on a counter-attack down the far side of the pitch, Ritchie picked out Draper, and the homegrown hero scored his hat-trick. So we lift the League Cup trophy for our first piece of silverware of the rebuild and guarantee our spot in the Conference League next season. Following that win though, we had a tough run of fixtures where we lost to the likes of Man City, Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool, which eroded our chances of a top 7 finish. But overall, we did improve on last season's performance by finishing 1 place higher and with 4 more points. I think our issue was that we just didn't have a clear striker hierarchy, and we were constantly rotating and subbing them on and off, so we need to address that next season. I also think that the 5-3-2 has run its course and we need a change. Dom Juric can play on the right hand side as an inside forward, so I'm thinking a 4-3-3 might be the next logical step to make. And with 73 million to spend, we have the budget to shop around for new players to fill those positions. In the end, we had a hugely busy summer, selling off £96 million worth of players, mostly to Osasuna, who ate up our scraps. We brought in £90 million worth of players, as we signed a mixture of first team players and young English talent to supplement our poor youth intakes. At 25 million, Antoine Mendy becomes our most expensive signing ever and will start at right back. But Joao Pereira will push him all the way, as the 20-year-old is going to fight for that starting spot. Caden Ryder has a job to do if he wants to take Romeo Lavia's starting spot away from him. Angel Gomez arrives on a free transfer, and if he thinks he's in for an easy ride on the left wing, he's wrong. Because he's going to be challenged by my favourite signing, an actual real-life wonder kid from Uzbekistan, Abasek Feyzullayev. There are incredible stories all over the pitch. It's the most excited I've ever been doing a rebuild by bringing all these players together and seeing what happens. Our first test was against Slovakian side Zelina in the Conference League qualifying round. But thanks to Dom Juric's 4-minute hat-trick in the first half, and 4 more goals from other players, we won the first leg 7-0. Away from home, we won 3-0 to confirm our spot in the league phase, where we should be winning all of our games. As for the Premier League, things were going really well. Dom Juric was getting comfortable in his new role on the right wing. This allowed Luke Gillam to become the main striker, as he became our top scorer in the first half of the season. At the halfway point, we're looking very good in 7th place. As for the Conference League, Chris Rigg turned out to be our star man, as he scored 9 goals across the 6 league phase games, helping us win 5 of them. A frustrating 0-0 draw against Malmo was our only slip-up. As a result, we finished 2nd in the table behind Reims, who won all 6 of their games. Back to the Premier League, and we lost form in the second half of the season. We lost 5 games in a row in a tough run of fixtures as we played Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham, Newcastle and Chelsea. But despite that poor run, we did enough winning elsewhere to maintain our position in the table, finishing the season in 7th place, which is just outside the European spots. Man United won the Europa League to earn a Champions League spot, whilst Championship side Bristol City won the FA Cup to get a Europa League place. So our only hope of making European football next season is by winning the Conference League. In the round of 16, we comfortably beat Slavia Prague 8-3 on aggregate. Hellas Verona in the quarterfinals, though, were a trickier opponent. We won 2-0 in the first leg, but got worried when they scored first in the second leg. Luckily for us though, Angel Gomez scored late on to seal a 3-1 aggregate win. This puts us up against Rangers in the semi-finals, which ended up being the easiest of all our knockout rounds, winning the first leg 6-1 in Lincoln and then 3-0 away in Glasgow to reach the final. Here we're up against Stade Reims, the only team to have won every single game they've played in the tournament, so winning is going to be tough. Early on we had a free kick, but it didn't quite trouble the goalkeeper. Moments later, we somehow missed the target as Gillam couldn't keep his shot down. And we were made to pay for those missed chances, as Reims played a long ball over the top, getting the better of our defence and the goalkeeper. So whilst we continued to miss more chances, Gabriel Slaninia was left in no man's land. He couldn't get to the ball first, and Reims grabbed their second goal of the game. However, they aren't perfect, and they had their own defensive mishap, gifting the ball to Juric, who used his 18 pace to get away from all the defenders and get us back a goal. And just before half time, Angel Gomez found the head of Sealt, who brought us back on level terms. That was an exhausting first half. But with the second half going nowhere, we needed changes. So on comes Fazaleyev and our homegrown hero Freddie Draper. And with 10 minutes to go, the two of them combined, only for Freddie to hit the post, meaning this match is going to extra time. Initially, Reims were looking the stronger of the two sides, but luckily for us, they just couldn't get their shots on target. Then it was our turn to attack. 105 minutes in, Fazaleyev managed to find Draper in the middle, who could get his shot on target, only for it to be ruled out by the VAR. So with time running out, we got desperate. But some lovely one-touch football got the ball into the middle, and Fazaleyev wrapped his shot past the keeper to give us the lead in the dying moments, crowning us the Conference League champions and granting us a spot in next season's Europa League. We had 5 players score double figures in all competitions, but I do worry we don't have an out-and-out goal scorer in the side who will score 35 plus in all competitions. The board have lowered our transfer budget heading into season 7 to just 67 million. We also don't have much room in the wage budget, so unless we make some big sales, I don't think this summer is going to be too busy, especially because we had a lot of successful loans last season. Thiago Soares will finally start for us in defence, whilst Philip Sung and Ethan Smith will certainly be looking to challenge. However, on the opening day of the window, Luke Gillam had his £79 million release fee clause met by PSG, forcing our hand to look for a new striker. We thought we'd found his replacement in OK Hassan, but he rejected us to sign a new contract with Everton instead. So I sent our scouts out far and wide, and they found Nemanja Delabasic, a 19-year-old wonderkid at Red Star Belgrade with a £6.5 million release fee clause. Obviously, we snapped him up, but we cannot get him confused with Nikša Delabasic, who's actually still at the club. The only other new signing we made was Giovanni Fabian on a free transfer after he left Bologna. So with Delabasic and Fabian, along with Soares finally starting, we have 3 new faces in the starting 11. And both the new boys scored on their debut as we beat West Ham 2-1 at Sincil Bank. This season, we started to beat teams who typically thrashed us. We won 2-1 away at Man City and destroyed Arsenal 4-0 in Lincoln. Even a 2-2 draw with Liverpool felt like a positive result. At the halfway mark, we sit 5th in the table, but a couple of losses could easily see us fall down to 10th. In the meantime, we've been given a mixed bunch of Europa League fixtures. But as it turns out, the more difficult teams were way easier to beat. For example, we beat Sevilla 5-0 and Celtic 3-0, whereas we slipped up against Servette, bottling a 3-0 lead to eventually draw the match 3-3. Despite that draw though, we still topped the league phase table, making us the favourites to go on to win the entire tournament. The second half of the Premier League season was actually pretty boring. We never did enough to challenge for the top 4, and we were never bad enough to drop below 7th place. Nemanja Delabasic was our top scorer in the Premier League with 14 goals, which is great, but I feel like we need him and Dom Djuric to both be scoring at least 20 in the league if we want to challenge for the title. So we might need to try and get them a bit more help next season. 66 points is our highest points total yet, as we finish in 6th place. We're also guaranteed a spot in the Conference League, but we could make it to the Champions League if we win the Europa League. In the round of 16, we beat Levante 4-0 on aggregate to progress to the quarterfinals. Here we beat Lille away from home 4-1 in the first leg, but we could only draw 1-1 at home, which shows that we aren't quite the powerhouse we want to be just yet. And in the semi-finals, the same thing happened. In Amsterdam, we thrashed Ajax 4-0, but at home we struggled and could only draw 1-1. I am aware that I am complaining despite the fact we have made the Europa League final, but I am just a little bit concerned about our home form in European knockout games. If we want to be the best and win the Champions League, we have to be absolutely perfect. And to beat Roma in the final, we definitely need to be perfect. But we weren't perfect. We were unable to put a challenge in from Roma's throw, and they were able to score 12 minutes in the game. And then just 8 minutes later, left-back Mario Kolev was sent off for a terrible slide challenge. So I changed to a back five and brought on Lello and Akamiya, leaving Djuric and Dela Basic to do their thing up top. But Roma were making the extra man count, and came so close to doubling their lead on multiple occasions. Luckily, Slaninia and the post were in fine form for us. But obviously, Roma's goal eventually came, as we couldn't effectively clear a corner, and it led to Roma recycling the ball and finding the back of the net. Things didn't get any better in the second half, when Roma scored their third goal 65 minutes in. And you know, it was one of those days when we did manage to score, only for it to be ruled out for the tightest of offsides. What a sad little life, Roma. I hope you use the prize money to get some lessons in grace and decorum. Liverpool beat Championship Leicester City on penalties in the FA Cup, which does mean that our Europa Conference League spot is promoted to a Europa League spot for Season 8. Thanks to not spending much last summer, we now have £109 million to play with. And a new goalkeeper is a priority, as Slaninia has refused to sign a new contract all season and is set to leave the club. He didn't even sign for anyone else, he just wanted out of Lincoln. We've also lost our other American, centre-back Matthew Vitale. I promised him we'd let him leave the club if someone bid £128 million, thinking no one would. Then Man United offered a package worth up to £134 million. But it was only 80 up front. So I thought it'd be funny to just ask for £150 million up front and lock it in. And they said, yeah, sounds good to us, no worries lads. So off he goes to United, I suppose. Then Championship side Middlesbrough made a £50 million bid for backup Nikčar Dela Basic. I would love to know what sort of money laundering scheme they've got going on up there, because that is just ridiculous. In the end, we actually sold £280 million worth of players, including 3 of our 4 centre-backs. With hindsight, might not have been the wisest thing to do. We did spend £204 million though on new players. This season, we went back in for OK Hassan, and this time he agreed to sign for us. Matthias arrives to replace Gabriel Slaninia. He's not as good mentally just yet, but he will improve with time. Franco Malone arrives to replace Vitale. He is slightly better mentally as he's older, but overall, probably not quite as good. And then after we failed to sign Yarmoliuk, we found the next best thing. Oliver Sonogo will become our new playmaker and hopefully collect plenty of assists. But obviously, with such a high turnover of players, there were going to be some teething issues. We lost to the likes of West Ham United, Ipswich Town, and Everton early in the season. We did start to turn things around though, especially with the emergence of Philip Sung. He's been out on loan the past few seasons, but we've had to fast-track him into the first team thanks to a lengthy injury to Dom Djuric. 7th placed at the halfway stage of the season is fantastic, but we aren't doing as well as we did last time out. In the meantime, our Europa League draw is a little kinder than it was last season, and we did beat the tough teams like Feyenoord, Besiktas and Bayer Leverkusen. But we did suffer a surprise loss to FC Midtjylland, which means we only finished 3rd in the league phase table. And the knockouts didn't quite go to plan. Now, we did thrash Lyon 7-0 on aggregate in the round of 16, scoring some outrageous goals along the way. But when we travelled to Galatasaray in the quarterfinals, we could only scrape a 1-1 draw, meaning we need to win back in Lincoln. And we were doing a great job, taking an early 2-goal lead thanks to a Dom Djuric brace in the first 30 minutes. But then Galatasaray went and scored 4 goals of their own to win 5-3 on aggregate and dump us out of the Europa League. Once again demonstrating we just aren't very good when it comes to playing at Sinsel Bank in the knockout stages of European football. I was also banking on us winning this competition this season to get Champions League football next year, so we're going to have to go ham in the Premier League if we want a top 4 finish. But with no other distractions, we found a new level. For the first time in 10 meetings, we finally beat Liverpool. We also thrashed Man City 3-1 away from home, beat Chelsea 2-0 even though we were playing with 10 men for 45 minutes, and dominated the game against Everton to win 2-0. Which I admit doesn't sound very good, it's only Everton, but with a game to go, they are confirmed in the top 4. And we've done incredibly well to climb to 5th place. And if we can beat Leicester City, and United don't beat Everton, we leapfrog them into 4th place. Thankfully, 2 minutes in, Everton were already doing us a favour, which they then doubled on the 20th minute. The issue was, we weren't really creating any chances for ourselves. That was until the 38th minute, when Fabian released Juric, whose cross took a lucky deflection into the path of Dela Basic, who scored from point-blank range. However, moments later, Leicester scored an equaliser, and Man United scored twice against Everton. So things aren't really going to plan. And no matter what we did in the second half, we just couldn't score a goal. Whereas Man United could. So in the end, we finished 5th in the table with no guarantee of Champions League football, but we have one final shot. With the new Champions League format, UEFA is giving the 2 countries whose teams did the best across all European competitions an extra spot in the Champions League. If England is one of those countries, we will be in the Champions League. But given we got knocked out of the Europa League early, we're not really helping ourselves there. But Arsenal won the Europa League, and Man United made the final of the Champions League, which means we do clinch a spot in next season's Champions League, thanks to everyone else being better than us. We need to be more clinical in front of goal though, if we want to have a shot of winning Europe's top prize. So we need to bring in a much higher calibre of player. And we might be able to do that with £101 million to spend. In fact, all we needed was £99 million to sign Mathieu Fischer from Lille, who looks like one of the best players I've ever seen in Football Manager. And he's only 22. But we need more. So I took a gamble on selling some first team players in Mendy and Oliveira and moving some aging players on, like Lavia, Ritchie and Bazunu, to raise an extra £158 million. I started small by spending £11 million on Melvin to be a backup left back. Our next signing was £33 million, new ball-in midfielder Julian Salazar from Leicester. And then we bought a new starting left winger, for £58.5 million in 20-year-old Paul McIntosh from Brighton, who already has a cap for England. I did get a little bit greedy though going forwards. I had a deal in place for a £70 million midfielder, but we only had £50 million left, and I didn't want to sell anyone else. So in a final roll of the dice, I asked the board for money, and for the first time ever in my life playing Football Manager, the board said yes. They made the funds available to bring in Bassi Bankole, a 21-year-old playmaker who already has 14 caps for Germany and quite frankly looks incredible. Now we are running the risk of needing our completely new midfield 3 to gel quickly, but this now feels like a team that could challenge for the Champions League. But first we need to worry about the Premier League, which turns out wasn't really a worry at all. The new midfield 3 transformed our team into a winning machine, and they unlocked the scoring potential of Dela Basic and Juric. Previously, the biggest goal haul either player has had in the Premier League is 15 goals, which isn't that impressive in the grand scheme of things. However, halfway into the season, both boys have 14 Premier League goals, with Fischer sitting on top of the assist charts. The new midfield cost a lot, but we sit on top of the Premier League table by a single point ahead of Manchester United. So I think it was worth it. But will they be able to help us beat the likes of PSG, Atletico and arch rivals Galatasaray in the Champions League? The answer is yes. We got revenge on Galatasaray for knocking us out of the Europa League quarterfinals last season, before sneaking past PSG thanks to what went down as a Warren Zaire-Emery own goal. We also completely dominated the game against Atletico, winning 3-0 to lay down a marker. In fact, we only dropped points away at Arsenal, meaning we finished second in the league phase, only behind Juventus because of their superior goal difference. Before we get to the knockouts, we had some tricky fixtures in the Premier League, and we did drop some points, drawing with Spurs, Arsenal and Chelsea, all away from home. A brilliant result ordinarily, but it means we fall behind Man United in the title race with 9 games to go this season. Luckily, we've been given a kind draw in the Champions League, and in Naples, we battered Napoli 5-0 to basically confirm our spot in the quarterfinals. But a 1-1 draw at home continues our trend over the last few seasons of not being very convincing at Sinsel Bank in European knockout games. So we need to fix this for when Real Madrid come to visit. Because in Madrid, we could only pick up a 1-1 draw, meaning we have to win on home soil. But the curse of European home fixtures continues. Madrid won 1-0, and we get knocked out of the Champions League. At least we now have a couple of months to just solely focus on winning that Premier League title. In a huge game against Manchester United, we went 2-0 down in the first half, with the live table showing us 5 points behind United. But in the second half, we fought back, scoring in the 68th minute, and then tying the game up in the 92nd minute thanks to Dom Juric. This gave us the motivation to push on, beating the likes of Liverpool 2-0 and Newcastle United 4-0. As we just couldn't stop winning, United did slip up with the odd draw and a loss. So with 3 games to go, we sit 6 points clear of United. If we beat Leicester on the Saturday and United failed to beat Newcastle on the Sunday, the title will be ours. We did our bit by thrashing Leicester 3-0 at home, virtually guaranteeing us the title, but it's not done mathematically yet. We need Newcastle to do us a favour tomorrow. However, they couldn't, so we have to wait for the next match. We're away against bottom of the table Bristol City, a banana skin waiting to happen. But 10 minutes in, we eased all of our nerves, as Kolev got past his man out wide, played a nice 1-2 with Bankole, and then found Juric in the middle, who scored the goal we needed. 10 minutes later, the two combined again. This time a float across to the back post, which was squeezed past the keeper to double our lead. Then, early in the second half, Juric scored his hat-trick, as Bristol City failed to clear a free kick, causing the fans in the away end to start celebrating the title already. Faizdaleyev came off the bench and was left wide open by Bristol City's defence, allowing him to score our 4th of the game and confirm the Imps as the 2032-33 Premier League champions. Although it was quite anticlimactic because the game didn't show us a trophy lift. But I can confirm the title has been won. But maybe the game knows we aren't quite fussed about the Premier League title. We were given one challenge by the board back on day 1, and that is to win the Champions League. And that is what we're going to do. I think we're just one new centre-back and maybe a change in formation away from getting that ultimate prize. Given our excessive spending last summer, we've only got £77 million this summer. But seeing as I only need one player, that's more than enough. In fact, it's overkill, because the scouts have found 22-year-old Miguel Benavides playing for Boca Juniors, and he looks unbelievable. They negotiated my bid of 15 million up to a total package of 24 million, which I accepted. But Arsenal have also made a large bid, and Miguel is more interested in joining the Gunners than the Imps. So we need to go all out on his contract. Immediately, I am promising him star player status, and then upping his wages slightly so he'll accept a 4-year deal instead of the 2 years that he actually wants. Now it's all in Miguel's hands. And all our hard graft in the contract negotiations paid off. Miguel chose us over Arsenal and we get our man. He'll start at right centre back in a new look 4-2-3-1 formation. This is actually the tactic that Jack and I used in the FIFA E Football Manager World Cup, so I know it works and it will make better use of Fischer's attacking talents. But it is less defensive than the 4-3-3 that we have been using, so I do feel like I'm rolling the dice a little bit to play a formation that is essentially, we're going to score one more than you, than trying to play defensively solid football. Now, we opened up the season with a 5-1 demolition job at home against Newcastle, demonstrating that the new tactic does indeed get goals. But that wasn't as impressive as an 8-1 win against Bournemouth, where our free-flowing attack made Bournemouth look like an under-18 team. It wasn't always perfect though. Liverpool did beat us 3-1 at Anfield, whilst Arsenal beat us 2-1 at the Emirates, so we couldn't yet feel totally unstoppable. But thanks to games where we did collect scorelines like 5-1 and 8-1, we topped the table on goal difference ahead of Man United at the halfway mark. Our Champions League phase certainly looks tougher than it did last season. We did beat Chelsea away from home 4-1 in a dominant display, And thanks to a 92nd minute winner, we beat Atletico 3-2 in Madrid. But a goalless draw against Leipzig and a 2-2 draw with Bayern, both at home, suggest we still aren't comfortable with playing European games in Lincoln. Still, I think this team is good enough to win the Champions League. At least I did before we lost a key player. In January, Barcelona triggered the £108 million minimum fee release clause for our best striker, Nemanja Delabasic. Now, we can just play Juric up top and put Philip Sung on the right wing, but this is a devastating blow. Delabasic has 20 finishing and 19 composure. The guy just doesn't miss any chances. Now, to cut a long story short in the Premier League, we were excellent in the second half of the season, and Juric did really well switching to the striker role. But I won't lie, we did miss Delabasic. Yes, we were still winning almost every game, but the scorelines are more like 1-0 or 3-1, instead of the 5-1s and 8-1s we were getting in the first half of the season where Delabasic was scoring for fun. And we did struggle in some games to score goals, meaning we ended up drawing more games than we'd like to, and even losing a few, despite having double the number of shots to the other team. Now, we still won the title by 10 points ahead of United, but we're lacking that clinical goal-scoring edge that we need to win the Champions League. Fortunately, we've been drawn against Tottenham in the round of 16, and away from home, we demolished them 4-1 as Matthew Fischer scored a hat-trick. But at home, we had to fight back from 2-1 down to score 2 late goals to win, once again highlighting our struggles in European home fixtures. In the quarterfinals, we're up against Inter Milan, and at the San Siro, we had a disaster. Despite taking 22 shots to Inter's 6 and generating a 3.1 XG to Inter's 0.7, Inter won the game 2-0, and we were on the cusp of being knocked out of Europe again. And of course, we really struggle playing European fixtures at home, so I was kind of resigned to the fact that we were just going to get knocked out. However, early on, Thiago Soares scored from a corner, reducing the deficit to 1. But we just couldn't find a way through for a second, until Chris Rigg decided to stroll back to the halfway line, but Inter's defender didn't see him. He attempted a huge back pass that went straight to Chris Rigg, who levelled the aggregate score in the 83rd minute, taking the match to extra time, where in the 99th minute, Matthew Fischer was in the right place at the right time to score our 3rd goal and send us to the semi-finals. Finally, has the European curse been broken? Well, in the semi-finals, we have to take on Chelsea, and we thought we were flying through to the final when we were winning 3-0 in the 20th minute. But because we scored all those goals so quickly, we became complacent, and Chelsea managed to score twice in the second half. To make matters worse, OK Hassan missed a 96th minute penalty, which didn't help when Chelsea scored first in the second leg. But once again, Chris Rigg came to the rescue, popping up in the penalty area to score a late equaliser to win 4-3 on aggregate and send us to the Champions League final. And you will never guess who we're playing against. Nemanja Delabasic's Barcelona. You just know it's written in the stars for our former player to score a 90th minute winner for Barca. So it all comes down to this: Barcelona versus Lincoln City. Nemanja Delabasic versus TomFM. 10 minutes in, we were on the front foot, working the ball out to the far side of the pitch. But when the cross came in, Araujo tripped up Fischer and the referee gave us a penalty. Up steps Bancole, who just gets his shot past the keeper. But despite the lead, we couldn't relax knowing Delabasic was on the field, as he almost got Barca back on level terms, only denied by the woodwork. It was a half of very few chances, but we hold the lead at the halftime break. Less than 60 seconds into the second half, we had a corner cleared out to McIntosh, who almost scored the most spectacular Champions League final goal. But 10 minutes later, we hit the crossbar from another corner. But this time, the ball fell to the feet of Juric, who put the ball into an empty net. So with a 2-goal lead, I actually switched to our more defensively solid 4-3-3 to try and shut the game down, which frustrated Barcelona. As they pushed bodies forward, they were snatching at efforts in their panic to try and score some goals, and just couldn't hit the target. But most importantly, we kept Della Basic to a 6.3 rating all game as he failed to make an impact. We played the game perfectly, and as a result, Lincoln City lift the Champions League trophy above our heads and complete the rebuild of my favourite football team. Low-key, this probably is my favourite rebuild I've done in all of FM24, but we've done plenty of them. The most recent one was with Newcastle United, but I was only allowed to sign youth players, which obviously made it a much more difficult task trying to win everything with them. It's on screen for you right now to enjoy, so after you like the video and subscribe to the channel, go click that one, give it a watch, and let me know what you think.